Right, today we're going to be making a pair of these fringe beaded earrings. It's two different techniques here. Obviously we're going to brick stitch this main part and then fringe off of it. So we've got the brick stitch part is made using Miyuki Delicas, and the fringe is made using Japanese seed beads. So if you have one of my kits, I'll show you what's included in the kits. If you don't, we'll give you all the tools and everything you need to purchase in this video anyway, so follow along. So this is what the kit looks like. So everything in here, you're going to get a bit of an instruction sheet and the pattern, the different types of beads and different threads. So I'll just pull one apart so you can have a look in detail. Okay, so you're going to get the beading needle, the two different types of threads. So we're using Fireline and Nymo. You're going to get the earring hooks and the thread protectors in here. So 2 earring hooks. You're also going to get the beads. So you're going to get 2 different size. Get that out of the packet. 2 different colours, not sizes, of the Miyuki Delica beads. And if I can just get in there. So the Miyuki Delicas are like little cylinders. So when you brick stitch with them, they sit really nicely in that brick formation and stack really well. And then you're going to get 1 pack of your Japanese size 11 size 11 seed beads. They do have more of a round shape, so they're great for fringing, but when you're stacking them in brick stitch, they tend to be a bit more open with the weave, so that's why I like to use the Delicas. Other tools you're going to need that are not included in the kit is just a pair of scissors and a pair of pliers. Beading pliers are best if you have preferable, just any really small pliers, and that's just for attaching the earring hook. So included in this kit, you also get this instruction sheet, and it'll give you the link to this video, the pattern here, which we'll be following, and then I'll just pull that in closer, and highlighted here is where we'll be fringing off of. So let's get into the beading patterns. On my tray, I have 2 different types of the Delica beads and one, well, it's actually a mix because I've mixed it up in, but the size 11 seed beads. We're going to be using, so the Fireline in the kit, or the Fireline you need to purchase, I'm using £6. The reason why we use Fireline for the brick stitch, the diamond part of the earring, is we want it to sit nice and secure, and we don't want it flopping around, whereas the fringe, we want that movement, so we use a lighter weight thread, such as the Nymo beading thread in there, so that's why we have 2 different threads. Right, so starting on the first row of the pattern, we're going to start with these 2 beads. So I'll get them on my needle. So I have the 2 Delica beads in the darker colour on my needle. I'm going to pull them down on my thread to almost the end, but I'm just going to leave a bit of a tail. So a bit of a decent tail. And then, so now I have my 2 beads on there. What I'm going to do is I'm kind of looping back around. So I'm looping back around, but I'm only going to go through that first bead that we popped on the thread there. And I'm going to hold on my work tightly but gently. Starting off these first rows is always the hardest part. And I'm going to keep going. And what it's going to do is make those 2 beads sit next to each other. So you can see them stacked up there quite nicely. What I'm going to do is, just to make it a bit more secure, is go back through the bead next to it. And then go back up again through that bead. So just looped back around again to make that little bit of work a little bit stronger. Okay, so now we've got the first 2 the first 2 beads, and the stitch here is called a ladder stitch. So we always start off brick stitch with a ladder stitch, and the next part is we're going to be, so to start on the brick stitch, we're going to be going through what we call all the bridges that we've created. Now, because we're working on a diamond, there's only 1 bridge here, so that is going under that thread that's on those 2 needles. So what I'm going to do is pick up my next row. So my next row is 1 dark, 1 light, and 1 dark. So I'm going to pick up 2 beads, and I'm going to pick up a dark and a light. I have my dark bead and my light bead on the thread, and what I'm going to do, get this so you can see it, I'm going to go through with my needle under that thread bridge. There we go. So you can see the bridge there. So that's just the needle going through that bridge, and I'm going to carefully attempt to hold on to everything while looking through a camera and pull this thread through. So gentle, 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 and they're going to want to kind of sit next to each other. So what we're going to do is, now that we're under that bridge, we're actually going to go back up just through, at this stage, that lighter coloured bead. Okay, so you can see it. just going through the bottom of that lighter coloured bead, and then I'm going to gently pull, and then my work's going to sit quite nicely beside it. So I've got the first row and the start of the second row. Now on the start of the second row I only need one more bead. So I'm going to pick that up, and we have no more bridges to go through, so what I'm going to do is loop back through under this lighter coloured bead. Now again, I'm trying to do this through a camera. Just loop through. Try not to get all your threads tangled. And it's going to sit a little bit funky at the moment. You kind of have to kind of coax it to go where you want it to go. And then I'm going to go through that bead we've just added on. And to get us set up for the next row, I'm going to go back through that bead in the first row. Pull everything tightly. And then go back up through that second bead in the first row, and then the first bead in the second row. And just pull it all up and get all my work nice and tight. So we now have 2 rows. Okay, so get that paperwork again. So we've done row 1, row 2, onto row 3. So we need 1 dark, 2 light, 1 dark. So we're going to start off with 1 dark and 1 light on our needle. So again, I have 1 dark and 1 light one on our needle, and we're going back again through these bridges. So you can see now on this beadwork we have 2 bridges. I'm going to go through the first bridge. And so what we're doing each row is we're doing an increase, and then when we come to the central part of the diamond, we're going to work on a decrease. So I've come through that bridge, and what I'm going to do is go back up through that light coloured bead and just gently pull everything into place. And there we go. I have 2 beads on my 3rd row. Right, picking up another light bead, the second light bead. We're going to go through that second bridge that was on there. So you can see it. So there's the bridge, and there's my needle going through, and I'm just going to gently hold on to everything and pull till all my thread has come through. Okay, and then I'm going to go back up through that bead we just added underneath and pull. And again, we've got the same thing. We need to add 1 more bead to this row, but there's no more bridges. So we're going to take 1 bead and we're going to loop up, back up under that bead again. That second light bead that we just added. Pull that in, and again, like it's going to want to go a bit wonky donkey. So there we go, we've got it sitting there roughly. Again, I need to set myself up for the next row. So I'm going to go back, I'm going to go down through that bead we just added, down through the row, the bead on the row directly underneath. I'm going to go come up through that first light coloured bead we added, or attempt to. Right, through that bead. And I'm going to go back up through that first light colour bead we added on the second row, and there is a bit of fluffing around getting the needle into the right place here. So I'm going to go down through that second, down through that second one we light coloured bead we added, and then back up through the last bead that we added. Okay, so that's where we're sitting now. So basically we're going to do the same thing for each row, and we're going to be adding at either end. So I'm just going to grab the paper. Here's where we start to have some fun with the pattern. So we're on row 4. We're going to do a light, a dark, a light, a dark, a light, a dark. We're going to pick up first our dark and our light. So I have our dark and our light on our needle, and again, well, now we've got 1, 2, 3 bridges. So we're going to go through the first bridge, and I'll get my needle under there and then I can show you. So there's the bridge, there's the needle. We're going to pull everything through that bridge, all the thread. I'm going to get, okay, scrap that, I've gone through the wrong end. Just 2 seconds. I hadn't turned my work around, so if you turn your work around, you can turn around. I'm just going to leave this where it is now. Sorry, the first bridge on this end, and gently pull everything through. And then I'm going to go back up through that light bead, light bead we added and pull everything through. Cool. Now we know it goes light, dark, so we're going to pick up just one of our dark beetles. I keep saying beetles, beads, and then we're going to go through the second bridge, and I'll just get my needle under there and let it focus. And so there's the bridge and the needle going through it. I'm going to just carefully pull all my thread through, and then I'm going to take my needle back up through the base of that bead we just added, and try not to get anything tangled on the way, and gently pull it. Right, next bead, again we were going light, and we've still got one more bridge left on here, so we're going to go through the bridge with our needle and gently pull all the thread through, and then we're going to go back with our needle up through the base of that thread, and then carefully pull until all of our thread comes through. Right, and again we still need to add one more bead, but we have no more bridges left, so we're going to go up through the base of that last bead, light coloured bead we added, and we're gently going to pull it all through, and as I say, it's going to sit all wonky. And now we kind of need to get set up for our next row, so I'm going to go down through that bead we just added, down through the bead directly underneath it, up through the light bead if it's next door neighbour, and I'm just going to be naughty here and skip through 2, and up through that middle dark bead in this row. Once you get the hang of it, you can do multiple rows like that. We're going to go down through the light coloured bead, and then back up through the dark coloured bead, and that set us up for our next row. And let's look at our pattern again. Right, here's our pattern again. So we've done rows 1, 2, 3, 4, so we're up to row 5. So we're going to go dark, light, 2 dark, light and dark. And I'll show you this last row, and then I'll carry on, and we can come back to decreasing. So I'm going to pick up 1 dark bead and 1 light bead. I'm going to look at my bridges again, and I'm going to go through the first bridge. Get this set up. There's my bridge, there's my needle going under the bridge. I'm going to gently pull all my thread through until there's no more thread to pull, and then this one's going to sit a bit funky. What I'm going to do is go back, just going to jiggery it around until it kind of sits where it needs to sit, and then I'm going to go back up through the base of that second bead, or the light colour bead we added. Then now I need to add 2 dark beads, so I'm going to go into the next bridge, just get my needle set up. There's my next bridge. I'm going to go through the bridge, under the bridge, sorry, and pull all my thread through until I can't pull any more, and then I'm going to take my needle back up through the base of that bead and just give it a little pull, gentle. Another dark bead, because it was 2 dark beads in there. And again, we have another bridge next door, so I'll just get it set up. There's our bridge. Take that bead needle and all the thread through. And then we're going to take our needle back up through the base of that bead and pull it all through. Now we've got one more bridge left, so we're going to take, now you can see our pattern starting to form. So we need to mimic the light bead on the other side. So I'm going to go through our last bridge. And there's our needle going under the bridge. I'm going to gently pull all of our thread through, and then we're going to take our needle and go back up through the base of the thread. There we go. And last bead, and again we've got no more bridges left here, so we're just going to go back up, making that loop and going back up through the base of that last light. There you go, you can see it work through. Our bead we added, and then I'm just going to set myself up for the next row. And we'll go through that bead that we just added, through the bead directly under it. We're going to go up through that light bead next door. This is harder to see because obviously the threads are dark. And we're going to go up through that second dark bead we added. And then we're going to go through the light bead, down through the light bead, throw your beadwork, and go too far? No. And then back up through that last bead we added. Right, now that we've got it started, I'm just going to bead away, working on the pattern to get to the main middle bit, and I'll just speed this all up, and then we'll come back to decreasing. Right, I've got all the way to the midpoint where we're going to start going and decreasing our stitches. So we're basically replicating this design on the other end. So you can see I've got in this row only one middle bead, so I'm just going to keep working through this design. So basically it's the same, but in reverse. So you're picking up 2 Delica beads, one in each colour, and here, because I want to decrease, instead of going through the first bridge, which would create an increase, I'm going to go through the second bridge. So there's bridge 1 is here, right, and then bridge 2 is between these two. So I'm going to go through that second bridge, and that's going to create my decrease. I'm going to go back up through that second bead we added. Now here we're going to have to stabilize this one, so I'm going to go down through that bead and then back up through the lighter color bead we added. So we've done a dark and a light, so we're going to keep our pattern going and go dark and just carry on as normal, so through the bridge and the next bridge. So carry on our pattern as normal, just picking up one bead, and we're going to go through the next bridge in the row, not skipping any bridges. And then we're going to go again, we're going into our dark bead here. Let's set up, this is actually going to be the middle row, and then we're going to go light, and back through underneath, and then we're going to go dark. We're just going to keep going until we run out of bridges. So there's a dark, back up through that, and another light, back through the next bridge, back up through the bottom of that bead, picking up our last, oh that's a funky colour, not that one, last bead, and this is our last bridge. So here we go, back up through the bottom of it, and now the nice thing is we don't have to move our thread around, and you can see the pattern has started to decrease. So we're going to do the same thing again on our first beads in the row. We always pick up 2, so I've got a dark and a light, and because we're still decreasing, I'm going to skip that first bridge and I'm going to go through the second bridge, and I'm going to go back up through that lighter bead we added, and because I need to stabilize, I'm going to go back down through the first bead we added and then back up again through the second bead. That just pulls everything to sit. Oh, get the tail caught in there. That's going to pull everything to sit as it should, she says. Right, now we're going to keep going with our pattern. So we're going to go dark. Now here we're going to follow this row, so we need to do 2 lights. So taking one bead, light bead, and going through the next bridge available, taking another light bead, again going through the first bridge available, going up through it. Right, next bead in our pattern, so we're going back to that dark. There's our bridge, there's our bead. We go back up through the base of that bead, like that. We're going to add another light bead, and we've got a bridge there. Go through the base of that bead. Oh, hold on to your work, otherwise it goes flying across the room. And then we're going to, so we've got one more bridge left, so this will be our last bead on the row. We're going to go under that or through that bridge, and we're going to go back up through the base of that bead we just added. Okay, one more row, doing the same thing but in reverse, and we're decreasing the stitch instead of increasing. So 2 beads, skipping the first bridge, going into the second bridge. And again, I'm just stabilizing those 2 beads. Cool. So I'm just going to carry on but speed it up until we get to the end. Okay, so we are on to, we've just got one more row to add, which is the same as the first row. And you can see how the cylinder beads stack and sit really nicely together. So we're going to add our last 2 beads, and then I'm going to show you what a thread protector is and why we use that. Just grab, so here in our last row, as you can see from our first row, we only need dark beads. So, and again, because we're doing this like a decrease, you're going to skip that first bridge and go through the second bridge with your 2 beads. Right, and then we're going to stabilize these beads. So going up through that second bead we added, pull it all tight, down through that first bead we added in the row, and then back up again through that second bead we added, and just give it a little, again, just a little tug. And then we have it, the finished diamond. Okay, so this is a thread or wire protector, and basically, if we get the earring in, we're going to loop this through the top so our earring hook can sit on there, and what that does is it protects all the threads in there from getting damaged as well. So basically, you take your needle through, it's got tiny little basically tubes or cylinders, so you take it through the first cylinder, adjust it, and then take it through the second cylinder and back down through that Delica bead. Now what you're going to do is just pull ever so gently, because what we want to do is get that thread sitting in the little cavity there. Okay, and then I go through a few times. So I'm going to go back up through that second Delica bead, and then I'm going to go back down through that cylinder and down through that first Delica bead we added in the last row. And again, pull in there and keeping it, so you don't want it sitting in here, it's not really going to do its job, it's just got to sit inside that little channel that's there. And now what I'm going to do is just go in and weave my Fireline in and out of the beads. So you're just going to go back, go through that one. Basically we just want to come out and get it out of the way. And just keep going through a few beads, zigzagging in and out and around just to secure it in there. Like that. Okay. Now because we're going to be doing fringing off the bottom beads, I'm going to just cut off my threads and get the next step sorted. Right, to get into the fringing part of this demonstration, you're just going to thread a decent amount of length of the Nymo, and that's just the beading thread. As I say, this is a little bit more of a looser thread so we can create that fringing. And what I'm going to do is just go and secure it by weaving it in and out of some of the beads and setting it up. So this is going to be my first fringe, is this bead here. It's going to come out of here and go down. So I'm just going to go maybe in here, in through here, and through here, get it all set up. And what I might do is actually tie a knot in to keep this secure. So I'm just going to go kind of between those 2 beads where I know there is the Fireline thread sitting, pull it all the way, make a loop, and then just do a double hook through 1, 2, and just pull, and that will tuck that knot in between those beads there. And what I'm going to do is pull my needle through 1, 2, and 3. And what I'm going to do is just cut that thread out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. So I've tied that knot. Right. So our thread, Nymo thread, is coming out of this bead here. So basically the widest part of the diamond, and it's coming down. So you want your thread protector up here and all your thread coming down the opposite way. So what I'm going to do is move that in. I'm going to pick up 13 of the size 11 seed beads. Okay, let's count them. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, that's 14. Okay, and then I'm going to let them, pull them all the way to the end. Shimmy those out of the way, because otherwise it doesn't want to focus. Right, all the way to the end. Now what we're going to do is, to make the fringe, is we're going to skip the last bead we just added, bead 13, and we're going to take our needle back up through all 12 Japanese seed beads, and just slowly pull your thread up until you just pull it as tight as you, well, not too tight because you want that movement, but just nice and tight so the thread isn't hanging down. And so we're coming up out of this first fringe. We're just going to take our beading needle through that second bead in the diamond row, working our way down. So we've got our first little fringy. You can just give it a little tug. All right, let's add our next row. So again, 13. It's 13 for each of the fringes. So we've got our 13 beads on there. Just going to pull them all the way down to the end of our thread and let them stack in there. And same thing as we did before, we're going to skip the last bead we added, and we're going to take our needle back through all of those Japanese seed beads we just added on, and holding your beadwork to keep it nice and tight and no knots. Just going to gently pull up, and that's our second row. And I'm just going to pull slightly to adjust, and now I need to get it set up for our second row. So we're coming, our third row, sorry. So we want to go into that third bead in the diamond row. Just go making our way down that diamond. And don't worry if you do that, what I just did, it'll work itself out. You can pull it all back in. And again, you can stretch these, pull these, adjust. If you just pull the last bead out, you can adjust your fringing a little bit. But you do want it a little bit looser so it's not so tight. Cool. And you're just going to keep going all the way down this row and then up this row. So I'm going to get it set up here, continue on down. I'll do one more row and then I'll do that, and then I'll show you how to go back up. Okay, one more row. I've got 13 beads. I'm going to pull them down my thread. I'm going to skip the last bead I added. Just pull that to the side. And then I'm going to take my needle up all through those other 12 beads on the row. And then I'm going to pull my needle through number 4. Down through number 4. All right, we're up to, I just ducked away, and we're up to this last row in the first side of the diamond. I've skipped that first bead, or sorry, that last bead we added, and I'm going through all 12 beads and back up through that bottom of that Delica bead. And I'll just turn this so you can see. Right, so we're going to go and take our needle through that second Delica bead at the bottom. We're going to add our 13 beads. Right, 13 beads. We're going to shimmy them on down. We're going to skip that bead, which is the last bead we added, and we're just going to go back up through all 12 other beads, Japanese seed beads, and then we're actually going to go back up through that Delica bead as well. Cool. And then we're going to work on the next row. I'll just shimmy some of these beads in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12, 13. Take it all the way to the end of our thread, and we're going to go skip this one and take our needle back through 12. Attempt to. If you have to do a few at a time, you can do a few at a time. You don't have to pull them up through all 12 in one go as I do. It's easier when you can, but if you can't, no stress. Right, this one's a bit wonky, so I'm just going to loosen that and tighten it up. And I'm just going to take my, just going to pull off my needle back up through that second Delica bead in the row. So first bead, second bead, and then I'm just going to keep beading all the way up to the last one. So let's do another row together. Let's pick up 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 13. We're going to skip that last bead we added. We're going to take our needle through all 12 beads, and then I'm actually going to go back up through that Delica bead that's kind of next and up in that row. And it is fiddly work. Beadwork is fiddly work. Okay, let's do another row together. Add 13 beads. 13. We're going to take all of our beads to the end of the thread. We're going to skip that last bead we added. We're going to go up through all 12 of the beads, and then you can kind of see our thread wants to go back up through that seed bead, sorry, that Delica bead right there, or not. I've just pulled everything out. So there, this bead. Try that again. Now here you can see my little loop wants to go in and get stuck in to another fringe. I'm just not going to let it do that. It's okay to go slow with this part. So carry on all the way up to the end and I'll be back. Okay, let's do the last couple of rows together. 13 beads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Take it all the way to the end of our thread. Skip the last bead we added and go up through the other 12 size 11 Japanese beads and go up. Cool, and then we've got this Delica it wants to go in, so we're going to go up through that one. And just to try and move my little ones out of the way. Right, last one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Pulling all the way down to the end of my thread. Skipping the last bead we added. Going up through all 12 other ones. And you can see this thread wants to go in through that last bead. And again, we might just go up a couple of those beads on the side. Oh, careful you don't get your work all tied up. And I'm just going to create a knot in here to secure everything. So again, pull it through between 2 beads. Try not to lose your handwork. Did I do that right? Yes. Pull slowly and gently. And then go back just through a few beads so you're not cutting off right where your knot is. So you just want to weave through a few beads. Right. And you can gently just trim away your thread. Then we have a fringy earring. Last bit is attaching the hook. Right, here's the earring hook. And you can see it's not all the way closed. I'm just going to take my pliers and I just want to gently pull it and open it up a bit. And then what we can do is just slide through the wire protector onto that hook and just gently, slowly, it's okay to do that a few times, is just close up that closing, but you just really don't want to put a lot of pressure on because it'll just make your finding your earring hook get out of skew. And what we really want is it to have as minimal opening as possible, but stay nice and rounded. And there it is. So if you have one of our kits, give it a go. If not, use all the materials that we talked about in this video and give it a go. And we always love to see your work. So if you've got some finished pieces, tag us at Ali&ChloeNZ on our Instagram page. We'd love to see your work. Happy beading!